Imagine walking through Europe 50,000 years ago. You're moving through a cold valley. Snow covers the mountains. Smoke rises from a cave in the distance. And then you see someone. They're standing upright. They're wearing animal skins. There's a stone tool in their hand. They look human, but they're not Homo sapiens. They belong to another kind of humanity. That sounds like science fiction, right? But it actually happened. For most of our ancient history, we weren't the only humans on Earth. Neanderthals lived across Europe and Western Asia. Denisovans occupied parts of Asia. A small-bodied human species survived on the island of Flores. And there were probably other groups we haven't discovered yet. Different humans walked the same planet. Some may have met peacefully. Others probably fought. And some even had children together. But today, only one human species remains. Us. So what happened to everyone else? Did nature wipe them out? Did we simply outperform them? Or did our ancestors do something much darker? Let's take a closer look. And trust me, the answer isn't as simple as you might think. Let's begin with the Neanderthals. They lived across harsh parts of Eurasia for hundreds of thousands of years. They survived extreme cold, dangerous animals, and repeated changes in climate. And despite how movies often show them, they weren't mindless cavemen. Neanderthals made carefully designed tools. They controlled fire. They hunted powerful animals at close range. They likely understood medicinal plants. And there's evidence that some groups used pigments and decorative objects. More importantly, they looked after each other. Some Neanderthal skeletons contain serious injuries that had healed years before death. An individual with those injuries couldn't have survived alone. Someone had to bring them food. Someone protected them. Someone cared. That changes the story, doesn't it? We're not talking about an animal that simply disappeared. We're talking about people. Then, roughly 45,000 years ago, larger numbers of Homo sapiens began spreading into regions occupied by Neanderthals. A few thousand years later, the Neanderthals were gone. That timing is hard to ignore. Where modern humans expanded, Neanderthal populations eventually vanished. It's tempting to look at that pattern and declare that our ancestors killed them. But ancient history rarely gives us such a clean answer. Could violence have happened? Absolutely. Two human populations hunting the same animals and using the same shelters would eventually come into conflict. They may have fought over caves, water, food, or territory. There are ancient bones showing injuries that might have come from weapons. But bones don't tell us who attacked whom. An injury could have come from another Neanderthal. It could have happened during a hunt. It might even have occurred after death. We don't have a battlefield filled with Neanderthal bodies and modern human weapons. There's no prehistoric document saying, "This is what we did." The evidence just isn't that clear. But there's another clue, and it's hidden inside us. Many people with ancestry outside sub-Saharan Africa carry a small amount of Neanderthal DNA. That means Homo sapiens and Neanderthals didn't only see each other from opposite sides of a battlefield. At certain times and places, they came much closer. They had children together. And some of those children survived, became adults, and had children of their own. Think about what that means. Somewhere in the ancient world, a child was born with both Neanderthal and Homo sapiens ancestry. That child lived within a community. People fed them, protected them, and taught them how to survive. We'll never know how that child was treated. Were they fully accepted? Did they feel different? Was their family created through a peaceful relationship, an alliance between groups, or something violent? DNA can confirm that reproduction happened. It can't tell us the human story behind it. Still, interbreeding shows that the relationship wasn't constant warfare. The two populations probably experienced many different kinds of contact. Some encounters may have been peaceful. Some may have been tense. Others may have ended in bloodshed. But violence was only one possible danger. The deadliest thing carried by modern humans might not have been a spear. It might have been disease. Homo sapiens had evolved in Africa before expanding into Eurasia. During that history, our ancestors encountered different pathogens and developed resistance to at least some of them. Neanderthals had been separated from those populations for an incredibly long time. When the groups met, each could have introduced diseases the other had never experienced. For a small, isolated population, even an ordinary infection could become devastating, and disease leaves very little evidence in ancient bones. A Neanderthal who died after developing a serious respiratory infection might leave behind a completely normal-looking skeleton. Tens of thousands of years later, we'd have no obvious way of knowing what killed them. There was also climate pressure. Neanderthals survived many cold periods, so cold weather alone probably didn't destroy them. But rapid environmental changes could reduce animal populations, alter plant life, and make familiar hunting grounds less reliable. Now add a new competitor. Modern humans may have had wider social networks. Materials found far from their original sources suggest that some Homo sapiens groups exchanged objects and information across long distances. That's a huge advantage. If food disappeared in one area, a larger network could tell you where animals had moved. Distant groups might provide shelter, tools, or potential partners. Small and scattered Neanderthal communities may not have had the same level of support. Modern humans also developed increasingly effective long-range weapons. Hunting from a distance was safer than getting close enough to stab a large animal. Our ancestors didn't need to be dramatically superior. They only needed a small advantage. A slightly better hunting success rate. A slightly larger social network. A few more surviving children in each generation. Repeat that for thousands of years, and the difference becomes enormous. Modern humans wouldn't need to personally kill every Neanderthal. They could gradually take the best hunting areas, occupy key shelters, and push smaller groups toward less productive land. Eventually, those groups might become too isolated to recover. Not an organized extermination, something slower, and perhaps harder to see. Then there are the Denisovans. We know far less about them. They were identified largely through genetic material recovered from a small number of remains, including fragments found in Denisova Cave. Yet their DNA tells an incredible story. Denisovans interacted with modern humans, and their genetic legacy remains especially noticeable in some populations across Asia and Oceania. One Denisovan-derived genetic variant is associated with adaptation to high-altitude environments in Tibetan populations. So, an extinct human population is still helping living people survive in thin mountain air. They disappeared as a distinct group, but part of them continued inside us. The same kind of mystery surrounds Homo floresiensis, sometimes called the Hobbit, because of its small body. This human species lived on Flores, an Indonesian island. Then, its fossils disappeared from the record around the broader period when modern humans entered the region. Was Homo sapiens responsible? Maybe. Island populations are extremely vulnerable. There's less land, fewer resources, and nowhere to escape. A new disease or competitor could create disaster very quickly. But Flores also experienced volcanic activity. A major eruption could have damaged an already small population. Once again, the timing makes us suspicious. But suspicion isn't proof, and that may be the most important lesson in this entire story. There probably wasn't one universal event that eliminated every other human species. No single final battle. No one terrible winter. No simple villain. Instead, imagine thousands of separate encounters spread across many generations. In one valley, modern humans and Neanderthals might have traded or shared knowledge. Somewhere else, they may have avoided each other. In another place, they could have fought over a cave. A disease outbreak might have destroyed one community. Climate change might have weakened another. Competition could have slowly reduced birth rates elsewhere. And sometimes, two lineages became one family. So, did Homo sapiens kill the other humans? In certain encounters, we probably did. But direct violence was likely only part of the story. Our arrival brought competition, new technology, expanding populations, and possibly unfamiliar diseases. We also interbred with some of the groups we were gradually replacing. They weren't erased in one dramatic moment. Some disappeared. Some were absorbed. And some likely experienced both. There's a comfortable way to understand this. Species compete, environments change, one population succeeds while another declines. Nature doesn't make moral judgments, but there's also an uncomfortable way to look at it. Our ancestors entered landscapes occupied by other intelligent human beings. Those beings cared for injured family members, made tools, and gathered around fires. And after we arrived, they vanished. Science can help us reconstruct the process. It can study fossils, tools, and DNA. But it can't tell us what the final Neanderthal communities felt as their world became smaller. Imagine one of those final groups sitting around a fire. The older members remember valleys they no longer visit. Hunting grounds now belong to strangers. There are fewer children in the cave than there were before. Across the landscape, another kind of human is growing more numerous. That other human is us. We'll never know the name of the last Neanderthal. We don't know whether they died alone, joined a Homo sapiens community, or simply understood that fewer of their own people remained each year. But we do know this: they weren't failures. They survived for an astonishing length of time. They endured climates that would terrify most of us. They built families, shared food, and adapted to a difficult world. Then their identity disappeared. Yet not every part of them was lost. Some of their genes still influence living humans. Tiny biological fragments passed from parent to child for thousands of generations. The other humans are no longer here to tell us their story. So we study what they left behind: a broken tool, a healed bone, a painted surface, a trace of DNA. Small clues from a world in which being human didn't mean only one thing. Today, we stand alone. But inside many of us, a small part of that lost world is still alive.